Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the strange lights in space ahead of them. The lights were not stars or planets, but something else entirely. His ship, the Aurora's Edge, had been traveling through deep space for 3 long months looking for new worlds and new life forms. Now they had found something incredible. The lights were actually huge ships made of crystal and metal. Each ship was as big as a small city, and they glowed with soft blue and purple colors. The ships moved slowly through space like giant floating palaces. Communications. Officer Park Min-ji turned around in her chair. Her eyes were wide with excitement. She had been trying to talk to the alien ships for the past hour using every language. Program their computer had, Captain. We are getting signals from them, she said. Her voice was shaking a little bit. The computer is trying to translate their language, but it is very different from anything we have seen before. Lieutenant Commander Kim Juneseo walked over to look at the screen. He was a tall man with short black hair and serious eyes. He had fought in many battles before, but this was different. This was the first time humans had met aliens from another world. What are they saying? Min-ji pressed some buttons on her control panel. The alien voices came through the speakers. They sounded like music mixed with wind chimes. Very strange, but also beautiful. They want to know if we serve something called sacred beasts, she said. They keep asking about our spiritual energy and if we worship the same gods they do. Captain Dae-ho frowned. He was not sure what sacred beasts were, but he knew they had to be careful. First contact with aliens was always dangerous. One wrong move could start a war. Tell them we come in peace, he said. Tell them we want to learn about their culture and maybe they can learn about ours. Min-ji typed quickly on her keyboard, sending the message in the alien language. The reply came back very fast. They want to come on our ship, she said. They want to see our sacred beasts and show us theirs. Dr. Choi Soo-jin walked onto the bridge at that moment. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. She had been studying space creatures for many years and was very excited about meeting real aliens. Did someone say sacred beasts? She asked. Her dark eyes sparkled behind her glasses. This could be very interesting, Captain. Many alien cultures worship animals or creatures from their homeworlds, Captain. Dae-ho thought for a moment. His crew was ready for this. They had trained for first contact situations, but no training could really prepare them for the real thing. All right, he said. Tell them they can send a small group to our ship, but tell them we will also send security guards to keep everyone safe. The next hour was very busy. The crew prepared the main meeting room for the alien visitors. Security Chief Park Dong-min posted guards around the ship. Engineer Bae Yu-jin made sure all the ship systems were working perfectly. When the alien ship docked with theirs, Captain Dae-ho and his officers waited in the airlock. The door opened with a soft hiss sound. The aliens who walked through the door were unlike anything the humans had ever seen. They were very tall, almost 3 meters high. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly in the light. They had 4 arms instead of 2, and their faces were long and thin with large silver eyes. The alien leader wore robes covered in strange symbols that moved and changed colors as he walked. He carried a staff that looked like it was made of pure light. I am High Priest Valtharian, he said through a translation device on his chest. His voice sounded like singing. We come from the Valtharian Empire. We have traveled far to meet you. Captain Dae-ho stepped forward. Welcome to our ship, he said. I am Captain Lee Dae-ho. These are my officers. We are explorers from the planet Earth. The High Priest looked around at the human ship with great interest. Where are your sacred beasts? He asked. We can feel their spiritual energy, but we cannot see them. The humans looked at each other with confusion. Dr. Soo-jin stepped forward. What exactly are sacred beasts? She asked. High Priest Valtharian seemed surprised by the question. Sacred beasts are the divine creatures that guide and protect all intelligent life, he said. Do you not have them on your world? We have many animals on Earth, said Captain Dae-ho. Some people keep pets and some animals work with humans, but we do not worship them as gods. The aliens looked shocked. Several of them began talking in their own language very quickly. High Priest Valtharian raised one of his 4 hands to quiet them. This is most unusual, he said. In our experience, all intelligent species serve the sacred beasts. The creatures choose which species will care for them and protect them. The chosen species becomes strong and wise. Engineer Yu-jin scratched his head. So these sacred beasts are like your leaders? He asked. Not leaders, said the High Priest. They are gods, living, breathing gods that share their power with us. In return, we build temples for them and bring them offerings of food and comfort. Lieutenant Commander Jun Seo looked interested. How long have your people served these sacred beasts? He asked. For over 10,000 years, replied the high priest. Our ancestors were simple farmers and hunters until the sacred beasts came to our world. They taught us how to build ships and travel. Among the stars, they gave us technology and wisdom. Dr. Sujin was taking notes on her electronic tablet. Could we see one of these sacred beasts? She asked. I am a scientist and I studied different forms of life. High Priest Valtharian looked uncertain. That would be a great honor, he said, but also very dangerous. Sacred beasts are powerful beyond understanding. They can read minds and control energy with their thoughts. One must approach them with perfect respect and humility. We understand, said Captain Deho. We will be very respectful. The high priest nodded slowly. Very well, he said, but you must promise to follow our rules exactly. No sudden movements, no loud noises, no touching the sacred beast without permission, and you must bow down. When you enter its presence, the humans agreed to follow the rules. They were very curious to see these mysterious creatures that the aliens worshipped as gods. High Priest Valtharian led them through the corridors of the human ship toward the docking bay where the alien ship was connected. The other aliens followed behind them, walking in a single line and chanting softly in their musical language. As they walked, the high priest told them more about the sacred beasts. Each one was different, he said. Some were good at fighting, others were good at healing, some could control the weather, and others could see the future hour. Sacred beast is named Morthanus. The Eternal said, the high priest. He has been with our people for 3,000 years. He is wise and powerful and very gentle. Unless threatened, they reached the docking bay and walked through the connecting tunnel into the alien ship. The inside of the ship was beautiful. Everything was made of crystal and metal that glowed with soft light. Strange plants grew on the walls and ceiling, filling the air with sweet smells. The humans followed the aliens through many corridors until they reached a huge room. The room was as big as a football field, and the ceiling was so high they could barely see it. In the center of the room was something that made all the humans stop and stare. It was huge, much bigger than an elephant. It had 6 legs and soft white fur that seemed to glow in the light. Small wings grew from its back. Even though the creature was much too big to fly, its eyes were large and golden and very intelligent. The aliens immediately dropped to their knees and began chanting. The high priest raised his staff and spoke in a loud voice. Behold, Morthanus, the Eternal, he said, sacred beast of wisdom and power. We bring visitors from a distant world. May they be blessed by your divine presence. The creature looked at the humans with curious eyes. It tilted its huge head to one side as if it was thinking. The humans stood there, not sure what to do. Dr. Sujin whispered to Captain Deho, it looks like a giant hamster. Engineer Yujin nodded. Yeah, but a really fluffy one. The sacred beast made a soft rumbling sound deep in its throat. It took a step toward the humans. The aliens gasped and chanted louder. Captain Deho felt his heart beating fast. This was the moment that would change everything between humans and aliens. The creature was beautiful and obviously very intelligent, but it did not look like a god. To look like an animal that wanted to be friends. The sacred beast Morthanus looked at the humans with golden eyes that seemed to glow in the crystal light of the alien ship. Captain Lee Deho and his crew stood frozen, watching the massive creature that was bigger than any animal they had ever seen. The Valtharian aliens continued their chanting, and bowing. High Priest Valtharian held his glowing staff high above his head and spoke in their musical language. The other aliens responded with more chanting that echoed through the huge chamber. Engineer Yujin whispered to Dr. Choi Sujin, this is really something else, he said. Look at the size of that thing. It must weigh as much as 10 elephants. Dr. Sujin was busy taking readings with her electronic scanner. The creature shows signs of high intelligence, she whispered back. Its brain activity is incredible, but there is something strange about its behavior. What do you mean? Asked Communications Officer Park. Minjeet seems curious about us. She said most wild animals would be afraid of strangers, but this one looks like it wants to come closer. The sacred beast took another step toward the humans. Its huge paws made soft sounds on the crystal floor. The aliens chanted even louder, and some of them began to shake with what looked like fear or excitement. Lieutenant Commander Kim Jun Seo moved closer to Captain Deho. Sir, what are your orders? He asked quietly. Should we back away before Captain Deho could answer? Something unexpected happened. Engineer Jin had always been good with animals. Back on Earth he had rescued stray cats and dogs and even helped injured birds. He looked at the sacred beast and saw something that the aliens had missed. The creature looked lonely, without thinking about the rules or the danger. Yujin stepped forward. The aliens gasped in horror. High Priest Valtharian shouted something in his own language that sounded like a warning. Yujin ignored them and walked right up to the sacred beast. He reached out his hand slowly like he was approaching a nervous dog. Hey there, big guy, he said in a gentle voice. You are a beautiful creature, are you not? The sacred beast lowered its massive head until it was level with Yujin. The engineer could see his own reflection in the creature's golden eyes. Very carefully, he reached out and touched the soft white fur behind what looked like the creature's ears. The effect was immediate and shocking. The sacred beast closed its eyes and made a deep rumbling sound that filled the entire chamber. It was purring just like a giant cat. The creature pressed its head against Yujin's hand, clearly enjoying the attention. The aliens stopped chanting. Every single one of them stared in complete silence. High Priest Valtharian dropped his glowing staff, and it clattered on the crystal floor. What have you done? He screamed. His voice was so high it almost broke the translation device. Blasphemy, heresy, nitrogen monoxide, mortal may touch the sacred beast, but the sacred beast was still purring. It nuzzled against Yujin like a giant pet. Several of the alien priests fainted and fell to the floor. Other aliens began backing away as if they expected lightning to strike them down. Dr. Sujin could not help herself. She walked over to join Yujin. Look at this, she said. The creature is clearly social. It wants physical contact and affection. She reached out and stroked the sacred beast's fur. It was incredibly soft, like silk. The creature made happy rumbling sounds, and its small wings fluttered with pleasure. Security Chief Park Dongmin laughed out loud. This is amazing, he said. It is like a huge space hamster that wants to be petted more. Of the human crew joined in, pilot Han So-young scratched under the creature's chin. Supply officer Nam Hai-rim found a spot behind its ears that made it purr even louder. The sacred beast was clearly in heaven. High Priest Valtharian stumbled backward. His forearms were shaking and his pale blue skin had turned almost white. 10,000 years, he whispered. 10,000 years of worship and prayer, 10,000 years of keeping our distance because the sacred beasts were too holy to touch. Captain Deho walked over to the priest. I think there has been a misunderstanding, he said. Your sacred beast is not angry yet. Is happy. HFY screamed the priest. Sacred beasts do not get happy. They are divine beings of pure energy. They do not need physical contact or AFFCTIOM, but the evidence was right in front of everyone. The sacred beast had rolled over on its back. Like a giant dog, it wanted belly rubs. Engineer Yujin and Dr. Sujin were happy to help. The creature's purring was so loud it shook the crystal walls. The other aliens were having different reactions. Some were still fainting, others were crying, some looked angry, and others looked confused. A few of the younger aliens looked curious, as if they wanted to try touching the sacred beast. High Priest Valtharian sat down hard on the crystal floor. This changes everything, he said in a weak voice. Our entire religion, our whole way of life is based on worshipping the sacred beasts. From a distance we built temples for them. We brought them food. We sang songs and said prayers, but we never thought to simply pet them. Communications Officer Minji knelt down next to the priest. Maybe that is the problem, she said. Maybe your sacred beasts have been lonely all these years. Maybe they wanted friendship, not worship. The sacred beast seemed to understand what they were talking about. It sat up and looked at High Priest Valtharian with its intelligent golden eyes. Then it did something that shocked everyone even more. It crawled over to the priest very slowly and gently. It lowered its massive head and touched the priest's forehead with its nose. The touch was so gentle it was like a whisper. High Priest Valtharian began to cry. Tears rolled down his blue cheeks as he stared into the creature's eyes. For the first time in his life he was face to face with his god, and his god was trying to comfort him. The other aliens watched in amazement. Some of them began to approach slowly. Their fear was being replaced by curiosity and wonder. Captain Deho realized this was a moment that would change both species forever. The humans had accidentally broken down a wall that had existed for thousands of years. The wall between the Valtharians and their sacred beasts, but there was still one problem. The other aliens were still afraid and confused. Some of them looked angry that their religious beliefs had been challenged. Dr. Sujin was taking more readings with her scanner. Captain, she said quietly, I'm detecting other life forms on this ship. I think there are more sacred beasts. How many? Asked Captain Deho. At least 12, she said. Maybe more. They all seem to be in different parts of the ship. High Priest Valtharion heard this conversation. He stood up slowly, wiping tears from his eyes. Yes, he said, we have 15 sacred beasts on our ship. Each one serves a different purpose. Some are for battle, some are for healing, some are for wisdom. Lieutenant Commander Junasio looked interested. What do you mean they serve different purposes? Each sacred beast has special abilities, explained the priest. Morthanis here is our beast of wisdom and knowledge, but we also have Tethara the battle beast and Silwyn the healer and many others. Engineer Eugen grinned. Can we meet them all? He asked. The priest looked uncertain. I do not know. He said what you have done here today goes against everything we have believed for thousands of years. Some of my people will be very angry. They might try to stop you, Captain. Deho put his hand on the priest's shoulder. We do not want to destroy your beliefs, he said, but maybe we can help you understand your sacred beasts better. Maybe there is a way for your people to be closer to them without losing your respect. The sacred beast Morthanis made another purring sound as if it agreed. It nuzzled against both the captain and the priest, bringing them together. High Priest Valtharion looked around at his people. Some were still afraid, but others were starting to look hopeful. The younger aliens especially seemed excited by what they had seen. Perhaps, he said very quietly, perhaps it is time for our people to learn new ways. Perhaps the sacred beasts have been waiting for this moment for a very long time. As if in response to his words, the sacred beast stood up and walked to the center of the room. It looked at all the humans and aliens gathered there. Then it made a sound that was not quite a roar and not quite a song. It was a sound of welcome. The great misunderstanding was beginning to clear up. But Captain Deho knew this was just the beginning. Their two species had a lot to learn from each other, and the sacred beasts were going to be the teachers. The next morning brought new surprises for everyone aboard the Valtharion ship. Captain Lee Deho woke up in the guest quarters they had been given and found Engineer Bei Eugen already awake and excited. Captain, you have to see this, Eugen said. He was looking out the crystal window of their room. Come look at this. Captain Deho walked over to the window and could not believe what he saw. The sacred beast Morthanis was outside in the corridor. He had somehow gotten out of his huge chamber and was lying down right next to their door like a giant guard. Doga Dr. Choi Sujin joined them at the window. She was already dressed and had her scanner in her hand. I have been taking readings all night, she said. The creature has not moved from that spot since we went to sleep. It seems to be protecting us. How did it get out? Asked Lieutenant Commander Kim Junasio as he joined the group. That is a very good question, said Captain Deha. Got dressed quickly and went out into the corridor. The sacred beast lifted its massive head when it saw them. Its golden eyes were bright and alert. It made a soft rumbling sound of greeting. Good morning, Morthanis, said Engineer Eugen. He reached out to pet the creature behind its ears. Did you sleep well? The sacred beast purred and nuzzled against Eugen's hand. Communications Officer Park. Minji laughed and said, you know we should give him a nickname. Morthanis is too long and formal for such a friendly creature. What about Fluffy? Suggested Pilot Han So-young. Look at all that beautiful soft fur. He's definitely Fluffy. The sacred beast seemed to like the new name. When they said Fluffy, it perked up its ears and wagged its tail. Yes, it had a tail like a giant cat that none of them had noticed before. From that moment on, the creature was known as Fluffy to all the humans. High Priest Valtharion found them in the corridor an hour later. He looked tired and worried. Captain Lee, he said, we have a problem my people are very upset about. What happened yesterday? Some of them want you to leave our ship immediately. Why? Asked Captain Deho. Because you have changed everything, the priest explained. For 10,000 years we have worshipped the sacred beasts from a distance. We built our entire society around the idea that they were too holy for mortals to touch. Now you have shown us that they actually enjoy being petted and played with. Some of my people think this means our religion is false. Dr. Sujin stepped forward. Maybe your religion is not false, she said. Maybe it just needs to change a little bit. You can still respect and honor the sacred beasts. But now you also know they want to be your friends. Fluffy seemed to understand what they were talking about. The giant creature stood up and walked over to High Priest Valtharion. Very gently, Fluffy nuzzled the priest's shoulder. The priest reached up with one of his 4 hands and touched. Fluffy's fur is so soft, he said with wonder. I never imagined it would feel like. This security chief Park Dongmin had an idea. Why do we not spend today getting to know Fluffy better, he suggested. Maybe we can learn what he likes to do for fun. The priest looked confused. Sacred beasts do not play, he said. They meditate and contemplate. The mysteries of the universe. Engineer Yujin grinned. Want to bet, he said. What followed was the most amazing day any of them had ever experienced. It turned out that Fluffy was very playful. Despite his enormous size, he loved to play fetch, though. Instead of a stick, they had to use a piece of crystal as big as a person. He could catch it in his mouth and bring it back, wagging his tail. Supply. Officer Nam Hiram discovered that Fluffy was very smart. She started teaching him simple commands, like sit and stay and roll over. Fluffy learned every trick in just a few minutes. His intelligence was incredible. The most surprising discovery came when Dr. Sujin was examining Fluffy's wings. She noticed they had small openings that glowed with energy. When she asked Fluffy to try flying, something amazing happened. Fluffy's wings began to glow brighter. The small wings that looked too tiny to lift his massive body suddenly generated a field of energy around him. He rose into the air and floated there as easily as if he weighed nothing. He can fly, said Pilot So Young with amazement. But not with his wings. The wings create some kind of anti-gravity field. Fluffy seemed proud of his flying ability. He floated around the large corridor, doing loops and spins like he was showing off. The humans clapped and cheered, and Fluffy purred with happiness. High Priest Valtharion watched all of this with growing amazement. We never knew, he said quietly. We never knew they could be so joyful, so playful. We thought they were always serious and divine. Maybe they can be both, said Captain Deho. Maybe being divine does not mean you cannot have fun. As the day went on, more Valtharion aliens came to watch what was happening. Some were still afraid or angry, but many others were curious. The younger aliens especially seemed fascinated by the way Fluffy interacted with the humans. One young alien named Silthara finally got up the courage to approach Fluffy. She was much smaller than the adult aliens, and her skin was a lighter shade of blue. May I touch him, she asked in a whisper. Fluffy seemed to sense her nervousness. He lowered his massive head down to her level and made the softest purring sounds. Silthara reached out with one trembling hand and touched his fur. Her face lit up with joy. He is so warm, she said. He feels alive and happy. Other young aliens began to come forward. Soon there was a group of them petting Fluffy and laughing as he played with them. The adult aliens watched with mixed feelings of shock and wonder, but the most important moment came that evening. Communications Officer Minji had been working with Dr. Sujin to understand how Fluffy's brain worked. They discovered that he was much more intelligent than anyone had realized. Captain, she said excitedly, I think Fluffy understands our language. Not just simple commands, but actual conversation. How do you know? Asked Captain Dehowich. This Minji said. She turned to Fluffy and asked Fluffy, do you understand what we are saying? Can you show us if you know what words mean? Fluffy tilted his head and thought for a moment. Then he walked over to Engineer Yujin and sat down next to him. He used his nose to push Yujin's hand toward his ears. He wants you to pet him, said Dr. Sujin. Oh wait, said Minji, that is not it. Fluffy, if you want Yujin to pet you, nod your head once. If you want something else, nod twice. Fluffy nodded twice. Minji smiled. Fluffy, what do you want from Yujin? Fluffy stood up and walked to a wall panel that controlled the room's lighting. He touched it with his nose and the lights dimmed. Then he walked back to Yujin and lay down, putting his head in the engineer's lap. You wanted the lights dimmed so you could rest, said Yujin with amazement. You were telling us you were tired and wanted to relax. Fluffy purred and closed his eyes. This was proof that he understood not just words but complex ideas. He could communicate his needs and wants. High Priest Valtharion sat down heavily on a crystal bench. This changes everything, he said again. For thousands of years we have been praying to the sacred beasts, asking them to guide us and protect us, but we never listened for their answers. We never tried to have real conversations with them. Captain Deho sat down next to the priest. Maybe that is what they have been waiting for, he said. Maybe they wanted to talk to your people but did not know how. The priest looked at Fluffy, who was now fast asleep with his head in Yujin's lap. He looked so peaceful, he said, so content. We have 15 sacred beasts on this ship, and I wonder how many of them are lonely like Morthanis Wasdar Sujin had been thinking about something all day. Captain, she said, I think we should meet the other sacred beasts. If they are all as intelligent and social as Fluffy, then the Valtharians have been missing out on relationships with 15 incredible beings, Lieutenant. Commander Jun Seo nodded. It would be like having 15 friends, but never talking to them. High Priest Valtharian stood up slowly. You are right, he said. Tomorrow I will take you to meet the others, but I must warn you, some of them are very different from Morthana. Some are much larger, and some have abilities that could be dangerous. We understand, said Captain Deho. We will be careful, but we also want to help your people connect with their sacred beasts the way they were meant to. As they prepared to sleep that night, Fluffy refused to go back to his chamber. Instead, he curled up outside their guest quarters again like a giant furry guardian. The humans took turns petting him and talking to him until he fell asleep. For the first time in thousands of years, a sacred beast was truly happy. And this was just the beginning. The next morning brought trouble to the crystal ship. Captain Lee Deho woke up to the sound of angry voices outside their guest quarters. He looked out the window and saw a group of Valtharian aliens in dark robes arguing with High Priest Valtharian. Fluffy was still sleeping outside their door, but his ears were perked up listening to the argument. The giant creature looked worried. Engineer Bayu Jin was already awake. What is happening out there? He asked. Captain Deho got dressed quickly. I think we are about to find out, he said. When they went outside, High Priest Valtharian looked relieved to see them. Captain Lee, he said, I am afraid we have a serious problem. These are the High Council members from our homeworld. They heard about what happened yesterday, and they are not happy. The aliens in dark robes looked very angry. Their leader was an old alien with scars on his face and silver markings on his robes. He stepped forward and spoke in a harsh voice. I am High Commander Ziegthan, he said through his translation device. What you have done here is an insult to our most sacred beliefs. You have corrupted our sacred beast and turned our young people against their own religion. Dr. Choi Sujin stepped forward. We did not mean to cause any problems, she said. We were just trying to understand your culture. The High Commander made a sound like a growl. Understanding, he said. You call it understanding when you treat our gods like common animals. You have no respect for the Sacred Order communications. Officer Park Minji looked confused. What sacred order? She asked High Commander. Ziegthan pointed at Fluffy, who was now sitting up and watching the argument. For 10,000 years, the sacred beasts have been our guides and protectors, he said. They are divine beings who choose to help lesser species like ourselves. In return, we worship them and serve their needs. We do not pet them like domestic animals. Lieutenant Commander Kim Juna Seo crossed his arms. But what if they want to be petted? He asked. What if they have been trying to tell you that for thousands of years? Silence, roared the High Commander. Sacred beasts do not want anything. They are perfect beings beyond mortal desires. Fluffy made a soft whimpering sound. He could sense the anger and tension in the air. The giant creature stood up and walked over to Engineer Yujin, seeking comfort. Yujin petted him gently. See, the High Commander said, pointing at Yujin, you have made the sacred beast weak and needy. Before you came, it was strong and independent. Now it acts like a pet seeking attention. Security. Chief Park Dong-min stepped forward. Maybe it was always seeking attention, he said. Maybe you just never noticed because you were too busy worshipping from a distance. The High Commander's face turned darker blue with rage. Enough, he said. You humans think you know better than a civilization that has existed for thousands of years. You think you can come here and change our ways in a single day? Captain Deho tried to calm the situation. We are not trying to change your ways, he said. We just want to learn and maybe help. High Commander Ziegthan laughed coldly. Help, he said. You want to help, then prove that your way is better than ours. How? Asked Captain Deho. High Commander smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. In 7 days our battle fleet will face the Kethmori raiders, he said. The raiders have been attacking our colonies and stealing our resources. For months we have prayed to our sacred beasts for protection and guidance. High Priest Valtharian looked worried. The Kethmori raiders are very dangerous, he said. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets. They capture sacred beasts and drain their life energy to power their ships. The High Commander continued, if your way of treating sacred beasts is truly better, then you should be able to defeat the raiders, he said. We challenge you to a battle contest. You and your human crew will ride with our sacred beasts against the enemy. If you win, we will consider that maybe your methods have value. If you lose, then you will leave our space forever and never return to Yar. Sujin looked shocked. You want us to fight in a space battle? She asked. We are explorers, not warriors, some of us. Our warriors, said Lieutenant Commander Jun Seo quietly. He had fought in many battles before joining the exploration crew. But using your sacred beasts in battle, that is different. High Commander Zekthan nodded. Our sacred beasts are the ultimate weapons. When they choose to fight, he said, they can survive in space without ships. They can move faster than our fastest vessels. They can channel energy that destroys enemy armor, but they will only fight when they believe the cause is just. And you think they will fight for us? Asked Captain Daehoth. High Commander's smile grew colder. If they truly bond with you as you claim, then yes, they will fight, he said. But if your connection is false, if you are just tricking them with petting and treats, then they will abandon you when real danger comes. Pilot Han So-young looked worried. Captain, this sounds very dangerous, she said. We do not know anything about space combat with alien creatures. Fluffy seemed to understand what they were talking about. The giant creature walked over to Captain Daeho and nuzzled his shoulder gently. Then Fluffy made a sound that was part purr and part growl. It sounded like he was saying he would protect them. High Priest Valtharion looked torn between his old beliefs and what he had seen. I do not know if this is wise, he said. The Kethmori raiders are ruthless. They show no mercy, and they have weapons we do not understand. Supply Officer Nam. Hiram had been quiet during the argument, but now she spoke up. What happens to your colonies if we do not help? She asked. High Commander Zekan's expression became grim. Many people will die. He said the raiders will take more sacred beasts and kill anyone who tries to stop them. Our battle fleet is brave, but they are not strong enough to win alone. Engineer Yujin looked at his crewmates. We cannot let innocent people die, he said. Even if it is dangerous, we have to try to help. Captain Daeho thought carefully about the situation. They were explorers, not soldiers, but they had accidentally started this situation by befriending Fluffy. Now they had a chance to help save lives. All right, he said. We accept your challenge, but we need time to prepare, and we need to meet the other sacred beasts. We cannot fight alongside creatures we do not know. High Commander Zekthan nodded. You have 3 days to prepare, he said. Then we will see if your bond with the sacred beasts is real or just an illusion. After the High Commander and his group left, High Priest Valtharion sat down looking exhausted. I'm sorry about this, he said. The High Commander is old and set in his ways. He sees your friendship with Morthanos as a threat to everything he believes. Dr. Sujin knelt down and petted Fluffy. What do you think, big guy? She asked. Are you willing to help us protect your people? Fluffy purred and nuzzled against her. Then he did something amazing. He walked over to a wall panel and touched it with his nose. The panel lit up, showing a star map of the local space sector. Look, said Communications Officer Minji. He is showing us where the battle will take place. Fluffy touched different spots on the map with his nose. Each touch made the map zoom in, showing more details. He was giving them information about the enemy and the battlefield. High Priest Valtharion stared in amazement. He understands military strategy, he said. I never knew sacred beasts could think about such things. Lieutenant Commander Jun Seo studied the map. This is very detailed information, he said. Fluffy is showing us the raiders' usual attack patterns and the best places to set up defensive positions. Captain Daeho made his decision. We will do this, he said, but first we need to meet the other sacred beasts. We need to know who our partners will be in this battle. High Priest Valtharion stood up. I will take you to them, he said. But remember, each sacred beast is different. Some are friendly like Morthanos. Others are proud and difficult. Some are so powerful they could accidentally hurt you without meaning to. Security Chief Dongmin checked his weapons. We will be ready, he said as they prepared to meet the other sacred beasts. Fluffy stayed close to the humans. He seemed to understand that danger was coming, and he wanted to protect his new friends. The bond between humans and sacred beast was about to be tested in the most dangerous way possible. Challenge had been accepted. Now they had 3 days to prepare for a battle that could change the fate of two species. The next 3 days were like nothing any of the humans had ever experienced. High Priest Valtharion led them through the crystal ship to meet the other sacred beasts. Each one was incredible and completely different from Fluffy. The first sacred beast they met was called Kethara, the battle beast. She was smaller than Fluffy but much more muscular. Her fur was deep red with black stripes and her eyes glowed like fire. She had sharp claws and teeth that could cut through metal when engineered. Yujin tried to pet her the way he had petted Fluffy. She growled and backed away. She was not mean, but she was very proud and independent. You have to earn her respect, said High Priest Valtharian. Cathara has been our war beast for 2,000 years. She only bonds with warriors who prove themselves in battle. Security Chief Park Dongmin stepped forward. He had fought in many wars and understood warrior pride. He did not try to pet Cathara. Instead, he stood straight and looked her in the eyes. I am Park Dongmin, he said. I have fought to protect my people just as you fight to protect yours. Will you accept me as your battle partner? Cathara studied him for a long moment. Then she made a sound like a tiger's roar, but not angry. It was a sound of approval. She walked over to Dongmin and touched his shoulder with her nose. The second sacred beast was Silwen the healer. She was beautiful with silver fur that seemed to glow with soft light. Her eyes were gentle and kind. When Dr. Choi Soo-jin approached her, Silwen immediately nuzzled against her. You have the heart of a healer, said the sacred beast in a voice like singing. The humans were shocked because none of the sacred beasts had spoken before. You can talk? Asked Dr. Soo-jin. Sacred beasts can speak, replied Silwen, but we only talk to those who truly listen. Most of your people pray at us but never wait to hear our answers. High Priest Valtharian looked stunned. You have been trying to talk to us, he asked, for thousands of years, said Silwen. We wanted to be partners with your people, not just objects of worship, but you built walls of ceremony and distance between us. The third sacred beast was huge, even bigger than Fluffy. His name was Tormuk the Guardian, and he looked like a giant armored bear. His fur was black as space, and his eyes were deep blue like stars. Lieutenant Commander Kim Jun-seo approached him carefully. Tormuk did not move or make any sound. He just watched the human with his ancient eyes. He is testing you, said High Priest Valtharian. Tormuk is our oldest sacred beast. He has lived for 5,000 years. He has seen many wars and much sadness. Jun-seo sat down in front of the giant creature. I know what it is like to carry the weight of protecting others, he said quietly. I have lost friends in battle. I have made hard choices that saved some lives but cost others. You and I understand each other, do we not? Tormuk leaned forward and touched Jun-seo's forehead with his massive paw. The touch was gentle despite the creature's size. In that moment, Jun-seo felt a connection to the ancient guardian. The fourth sacred beast was the strangest one yet. Her name was Zixara the Mindwalker. She looked almost like a dragon with 6 legs and crystalline scales that changed colors. Her eyes were pure white without pupils. Communications Officer Park Minji approached her nervously. Hello, she said. I work with communications and languages. Maybe we can understand each other. Zixara did not speak with her mouth. Instead, her voice appeared directly in Minji's mind. Young human, your thoughts are bright and curious. I have been lonely for so long, waiting for someone who could hear my mental voice. Minji gasped. You are telepathic, she said. All sacred beasts have mental abilities, replied Zixara in her mind, but I am the strongest. We can share thoughts and feelings across great distances. In battle, I can coordinate all the other sacred beasts like a living computer. The fifth sacred beast was small compared to the others, but incredibly fast. His name was Velter the Scout. He looked like a cross between a wolf and a bird with feathers instead of fur and wings that could actually fly. Pilot Han So-young was fascinated by him. You are built for speed and flying, she said. Just like my job as a pilot. Velter chirped like a bird and flew in circles around her. Want to race? He asked in a playful voice. So-young laughed. I would love to, but I do not have wings that can be fixed, said Velter. He landed on her shoulders, which were just strong enough to support his weight. I can carry you and we can fly together. The sixth and final sacred beast they met was the most mysterious engineer. Yujin had bonded with Fluffy and all the others had found partners. But there was one more creature in the ship's lowest level. His name was Nixthal, the Shadow Walker, and he was almost impossible to see. He seemed to be made of living darkness that moved like smoke. When they entered his chamber, they could barely make out his shape. Supply Officer Nam. Hi, Rim stepped forward into the darkness. She had always been good at finding things that others missed. I know you are there, she said softly. You do not have to hide from USA. Voice came from the shadows like a whisper. I am not hiding, I am hunting. The Kethmori raiders use stealth technology to sneak up on their enemies. "I am the one who hunts the hunter." Shirim smiled. "You are like me then," she said. "I find things that are lost or hidden. We both work in the background to help others." The shadow creature moved closer, and she could see glowing purple eyes in the darkness. "You understand," said Nixthal. "Most beings fear the dark, but you see its purpose now." All the humans had bonded with sacred beasts, but the real work was just beginning. They had to learn how to fight together in space. Combat High Priest Valtharion took them to a training chamber where they could practice the sacred beasts could create energy shields around their human partners, allowing them to survive in the vacuum of space. The training was difficult and scary at first. Captain Deho and Fluffy could barely fly in a straight line. Fluffy was eager to help, but he had never carried a rider in battle before. They crashed into walls and spun out of control. Several times Security Chief Dongmin and Cathara had better luck. The war beast was used to combat, and she understood tactics quickly. Soon they were flying attack patterns and practicing strike maneuvers. Dr. Sujin and Silwyn worked on healing techniques. The Silver Sacred Beast could channel energy that could repair damage to ships and heal wounded beings. This would be crucial in a long battle. Lieutenant Commander Jun Seo and Tormak practiced defensive formations. The giant guardian could create energy barriers that could stop enemy weapons. Their job would be to protect the other fighters' communications. Officer Mingji and Zixara worked on coordination. The telepathic sacred beast could connect all the fighters mentally, allowing them to work as a perfect team pilot. So Young and Velter practiced high-speed reconnaissance. They could scout enemy positions and relay information faster than any technology supply. Officer Hiram and Nixthal worked on stealth attacks. The shadow creature could become completely invisible and strike enemies from behind, but the most important part of training was learning to trust each other. The sacred beasts had to believe that their human partners would not abandon them in danger. The humans had to trust that the creatures would protect them even at the cost of their own lives. On the second day of training, something clicked. Captain Deho and Fluffy were practicing a difficult maneuver when enemy drones attacked the training area. These were not real enemies, but robot targets designed to test their skills. At first, Deho tried to give Fluffy commands like a pilot giving orders to a ship, but Fluffy was not a machine. He was a living being with his own intelligence and instincts. "Stop trying to control him," said Dr. Sujin over their communication link. "Trust him to make his own decisions." Deho let go of his need to be in command. Instead, he focused on working with Fluffy as a team. When enemy drones came from the left, Deho would point them out, and Fluffy would decide the best way to attack. When they needed to dodge missiles, Fluffy would warn Deho with his body language, and they would move together. The change was immediate. They went from clumsy beginners to a smooth fighting team. 6 months after the invasion ended, Earth looked very different. The Valdris Empire had not been destroyed, but transformed. Many of their people chose to stay and learn from humanity's example. Others returned to the worlds they had conquered, carrying news that the age of conquest was over. Dr. Namba Ora stood in the Antarctic facility, now expanded into a proper academy. The 12 Guardians worked with human and alien scientists to share the knowledge they had gained. Former Valdris soldiers learned to tend gardens that had once been weapons platforms. Captain Cho Minho still guarded the facility, but now he protected something even more important: hope. The secret beneath the ice hadn't just been powerful humans, but the idea that different species could work together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Guardian Han So-young often walked through the halls, no longer alone. She had found love with a former Valdris engineer named Kurden, who had helped reprogram his people's ships for peaceful purposes. Their partnership symbolized the new age, former enemies becoming family. "The next generation will be even better," Dr. Namba Ora told a gathering of human and alien scientists. "We're not creating weapons anymore. We're creating bridges between species, guardians of peace rather than instruments of war." In the deepest levels of the facility, new chambers were being built. Not for more guardians, but for volunteers from dozens of species who wanted to become something new together. The program that had begun with desperate humans trying to defend their world had become a symbol of cooperation across the galaxy. The war had ended the moment the Valdris Empire learned what humanity had buried beneath Antarctica: not just enhanced humans, but the proof that love, sacrifice, and cooperation could overcome any amount of advanced technology driven by conquest and fear. As Han So-young often said to visitors from across the galaxy, humans didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we remembered that true strength comes from protecting others, not conquering them. The ice of Antarctica kept its secrets. Still, but now, those secrets were shared freely with anyone who came seeking peace instead of war. Humanity had buried desperation beneath the ice and raised hope above it, transforming not just themselves but the entire galaxy's future.